Good day. Today's lecture is devoted to the methods of preparing and conducting classes in higher education institutions of the Republic of Kazakhstan. This topic is especially important because the quality of university teaching depends not only on subject knowledge but also on the teacher's ability to organize, structure, and implement the educational process in a methodologically sound way. Therefore, preparation and conduct of classes should be regarded as central components of professional pedagogical competence. At the outset, the lecture formulates its aim in a focused way to understand the method of productive use of visual material in higher education. This emphasis is pedagogically significant. In contemporary teaching, visual material is not merely decorative support. Rather, it is an important means of clarifying concepts, structuring information, and strengthening student understanding. Accordingly, the lecture addresses preparation and classroom organization from the perspective of methodological effectiveness, with particular attention to visibility as a principle of instruction. This slide presents the lesson as the core of the educational process. It is defined as a model of interaction between teacher and students, organized as a sequence of learning stages based on changing student activity. This definition is important because it shows that a lesson is not a static event. Rather, it is a dynamic pedagogical structure in which the forms of student participation gradually develop. The slide also refers to the course schedule as a key teaching document. It records the distribution of material by didactic units, the required visual aids, and the tasks of independent work. Therefore, the lesson must be seen not only as classroom activity, but also as part of a broader system of curricular organization. The next slide turns to the planning of educational work. Three documents are distinguished here: the curriculum, the working curriculum, and the sample curriculum. The curriculum sets the general educational direction, including the aims of forming a fully developed person, the composition of subjects, and the distribution of hours. The working curriculum specifies the schedule, sequence of disciplines, types of training sessions, practice, and certification forms. The sample curriculum, by contrast, serves as a recommendation document reflecting state requirements. Thus, educational planning proceeds from general standards to concrete institutional organization. This progression is methodologically essential because teaching quality depends on coherence between state requirements, institutional planning, and classroom practice. This slide develops the previous theme by focusing on the educational program of the subject. The educational program defines conceptual foundations, content, organizational and methodological features, implementation conditions, and expected results. The working educational program specifies the sequence and content of training in accordance with state standards. The sample educational program serves as a recommendation basis for constructing the working version. Accordingly, subject teaching in higher education is not improvised. It is guided by a structured program system that ensures consistency between aims, content, and methods. The next slide identifies 5 principles for developing the educational program: availability and consistency, science, visibility, theory with practice, and effectiveness. Each of these principles performs a distinct pedagogical function. Availability and consistency ensure that material is accessible and logically sequenced. The principle of science guarantees academic rigor. Visibility supports understanding through visual means. The unity of theory and practice connects knowledge with application. Effectiveness requires that chosen methods produce measurable educational results. Taken together, these principles establish the normative basis of sound educational design. Therefore, program development should always be guided by pedagogical logic rather than by convenience alone. This slide turns directly to lesson preparation. It states that the teacher must prepare an educational and methodological package, including handouts, audio and video materials, and other resources. In addition, individual tasks for stronger students and the forms of independent work must be determined in advance. The teacher is also expected to anticipate possible difficulties and plan measures to overcome them. The slide then identifies Stage 1, which combines organizational training and diagnostic functions. At this point, the teacher prepares both self and students for the lesson, diagnoses prior knowledge, checks independent work, analyzes its quality, and makes corrections where necessary. Consequently, the opening of the lesson serves not only organizational purposes, but also diagnostic and regulatory ones. The following slide presents the lesson model through later stages: the construction stage, the systematized stage, and the final stage. During the construction stage, students perceive new material. During the systematized stage, they form a more coherent and holistic understanding of knowledge. During the final stage, learning quality is analyzed and reflection begins. This model is pedagogically valuable because it demonstrates that lesson development moves from perception to systematization and then to analysis. This slide generalizes the idea of staged instruction. It emphasizes that effective teaching includes structured phases which guide students and master students from self-reflection to independent work and toward meaningful educational outcomes. The methodological significance of this point lies in the fact that higher education cannot rely on spontaneous classroom movement. On the contrary, it requires ordered stages through which learning becomes conscious, progressive, and pedagogically purposeful. The lecture then introduces training session game technology. This form of work is organized in 3 stages: preparation, implementation, and analysis with discussion. During preparation, aims, materials, and conditions are determined. During implementation, the training activity itself is carried out. During analysis and discussion, results are reviewed and reflected upon. This sequence is particularly important because game-based or training session technologies require just as much structure as traditional instruction. Their effectiveness depends on preparation, managed execution, and serious post-activity reflection. This slide distinguishes 2 further stages: the reflexive stage and the information stage. The reflexive stage is devoted to self-assessment of student activity and to evaluation of cooperation. Its result is preparation for and understanding of independent work. The information stage, by contrast, explains the logic of the next lesson and helps determine prospects for the development of future creative activity. Thus, the lesson does not end with task completion alone. It concludes with reflection on what has been done and with orientation toward what is to come. This makes the educational process continuous rather than fragmented. The presentation next turns to teacher competence under conditions of new technology. A central point is made very clearly. Success depends not simply on the application of a method, but on the selection of the right method at the right stage for a particular group of students. The teacher must be able to apply methods, conduct and analyze sessions, introduce new work approaches, and evaluate results through pedagogical diagnostics. In addition, the slide notes that new technologies require visual aids, handouts, differentiated exercises, control tasks, and tests. Therefore, teacher competence in modern education is inseparable from methodological flexibility and well-grounded diagnostic practice. The conclusion of the lecture states this central idea: with clarity, effective preparation, and organization of classes in higher education are crucial. Proper curriculum planning, the productive use of visual materials, and the integration of modern teaching technologies all contribute to stronger student understanding, greater motivation, and better practical skills. The slide also highlights 3 especially important final points. Structured lessons support systematic learning and achievement of goals. Teacher professionalism and creativity remain essential. And quality education is a key condition for the advancement of higher education in the Republic of Kazakhstan. Accordingly, the teacher's work must be both methodologically rigorous and professionally adaptive. Thank you for your attention. I hope this lecture has clarified the main methods of preparing and conducting classes in higher education institutions of the Republic of Kazakhstan and has shown why planning, structure, visual support, and methodological competence are essential for effective university teaching.